Hi again, it's Creeps and Killers with Amina Farota. You're welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so sorry I have been away for a very long time. So if you're a new subscriber, please do not forget to click on the notification bell. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you. You all know that I love you. Okay, so on today's episode, we are going to be discussing Jeff DAHMER. Sounds familiar. So there's this Netflix series now. It was released on, I think, on September 21st, 2022. So the title of this movie is DAHMER Monster, the DAHMER story. So if you watch this Netflix series, it's based on the true life story, based on the true life crimes of Jeff DAHMER. Okay, Jeff DAHMER was born in 1960, May 21st, 1960. He was born to Joyce Flint and Lionel DAHMER. Now, these two parents, they were often having issues. The husband, who is Lionel DAHMER, was still schooling. He was schooling in the Milwaukee University, while the wife was at home. Now, she was a hypochondriac. Now, hypochondria is a condition where the person always feels like they are sick, even if there's nothing there. Even if they are feeling, they always have this feeling that there's a sickness somewhere. So because of this, she was always taking medication and she was always lying on the bed. Now, Jeff DAHMER, his dad was rarely around. So because of this, he was alone and he suffered from abandonment. Now, he was, according to people who described him, they said he was very lively, he was a very happy child until a few days before he was 4 years old. Then he had his surgery. Now, he had a double hernia surgery. And then after the surgery, they said he just withdrew. He stopped talking to people, he stopped being interested in anything. He became a loner. Now, the parents they were fighting each other, and he was witnessing all of these fights. And then along the line, they were also trying to get him interested in some stuff. He wasn't showing interest in anything. Now, later diagnosed with bipolar personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and also had a psychotic disorder. Now, some persons will attribute this disorder to maybe the double hernia surgery, and then research showed that there was no correlation between any of these two. Now, the parents, they kept fighting each other, and then they moved several times. Like within the space of 2 years, they have shifted to like 6 different places. They moved to Ohio, they moved to Wisconsin, back to Ohio, they moved to different places. And then just before DAHMER turned 6, his dad graduated from the university. His dad became a chemist. Now when DAHMER was 6, he started showing interest in dead animals. So his dad was trying to create time for him. They would just go on road trips, and then they'll go on road trip, find roadkill, pick up squirrels, rodents, all sorts of dead animals, and then he would dissect them to just like experiment with this animal, work on them. Sometimes the dad was working on animals. The dad, I think when he was 6, one day they were having a dinner. He asked his dad what would happen if the chicken bones were soaked in a bleach, because his dad was using formaldehyde. And then the dad was like, he was so happy because of his son's curiosity, but the mom was not happy about this. So the dad tried to experiment it with him. And then when he became a teenager, everybody saw him as an outcast back in high school. He had a very high IQ. He had the IQ of about 144 points, but his scores, like his school grades, they were just a little above average. He was struggling with studies, and then he started drinking in school. He was committing all sorts of. He was just behaving generally immoral. He was just displaying some immoral conduct back in school, and there were no friends. So later on, before he left high school, one of his teachers, I think during history class, they saw him. He was drinking alcohol, and then the teacher threatened to report him to the school head. He apologized and he said he was going through a lot. I think around this time, just before he finished his high school, his parents got divorced. And then when the parents got divorced, he was barely 18 years. A few days before he turned 18, they got divorced. The dad moved out of the house, and then the mom just moved out. She moved out with his younger brother. Sorry, I forgot to say, when he was 6 years old, he had a younger brother, and then he was asked to name the younger brother. He named him David. So the mom moved out with the younger brother. So Jeff was left. He was barely 18. He was left alone in the house. He started living alone. He was fending for himself, and then he got admitted into the Ohio State University. Now, when he got admitted into this university, like, his alcoholism became a problem. He was drinking too much, so many immoral conduct. He was arrested for public disturbance, all of that. Just 3 months after he was admitted into the university, he dropped out. Even if his dad had paid upfront for even the next semester, so he just dropped out like that. And then the dad was trying to like rescue him, to save him from himself. So he was enlisted into the US Army. And he was enlisted, his drinking problem continued, and then he was displaying all sorts of behavior. Then 2 years after, he was a fairly average soldier. So 2 years after, he was disbanded from the army. But around this period, the army did not think that his behavior would create a civil problem. So he was left. And then few months, I forgot to say, before he was enlisted into the army, he murdered the person. His first victim was Stephen Hicks, and this guy was 20 years old. He had deceived him, and then in his early teens, he discovered that he was gay. So he was interested in men, so he deceived Stephen Hicks. He just told him to come to his house. He promised him some bottles of beer, and then they go to the apartment. When they got there, he hit his head. According to him, said he hit his head twice. After hitting him, he fell unconscious, and then he decided to like perform all sorts of sexual acts with his dead body. And then after that, he went ahead to dismember his body. And then after dismembering this body, he took the body down. He took it down the basement of his house, where he locked the body away. Then after some days, he crushed the bones of this guy with a sledgehammer and sprinkled them at their backyard. And then the flesh, he decided to put the flesh in a plastic bag and then dispose them off. Then after enlisting into the army, after he was disbanded from the army rather, he decided to move to Florida because he said he couldn't face his dad. And then after some months, he made a call to his dad. He asked his dad if he could come back home. His dad said yes, he could come back home. He came back, he started living with his dad, and at this time the dad was already married to another woman. So while he was living with them, he just wanted freedom. So he decided to move out. He went to live with his grandmother. Now, while he was living with his grandmother, he was constantly bringing young men home at night, different time. And then once he brought another man home again. He brought a 19-year-old guy home. When he brought him home, he drugged him again because he said like he didn't like when his partners moved during any sexual encounter. So he wanted dominance. He wanted them to stay still. So because of this, he will often drug them, and when they were unconscious, he would masturbate on them. So this victim, when he brought him home, he drugged him, and then when the victim fell unconscious, he killed him. After killing him, he used a saw. He saw off his body parts, and then after that, he decided to soak the skin in hydrochloric acid, and then after doing that, he separated the bones from the skin. He went on to he used a sledgehammer to crush the bones and then sprinkle them behind at the back of the house, and then the skin, the flesh itself, he dissolved it in acid, and then he went to flush it down the toilet. And then after flushing them down the toilet, the skull, 3 days later, he boiled the skull in Solax. Now, Solax is a chemical, an alkaline-based chemical. He boiled it in Solax, and then he skinned it. After removing the skin, he brought out the skull. He kept the skull, and then he said because after boiling the skull became very brittle, so it's easily it broke. So he wasn't able to preserve and keep it. So he had to dispose it off. Then, because of his constant bringing men into the house at night, on one occasion he brought a man home. This guy's name was Flowers. And then after bringing the man home, his grandmom called his name. His grandmom was like, "Dahmer, is that you?" He said Yes. Are you alone? He told his mom, yes, and he was alone. But he knew that his mom already saw someone with him. So because of this, he couldn't kill that victim. And at this time, he had already drugged the victim. So he just took this victim to the county hospital, dumped him there, and then left. Lucky guy. So, few months later, the granny asked him to pack out of the house because of his attitude, drunkenness, and all of that. He moved out of the house. He worked in the chocolate factory. When he was working in this factory, he was working 6 days in a week, and he was working all shifts. Like he just kept working to keep himself busy. And then after while he was working here, he would often visit gay bars, promise to pay some persons, promise them from between $50 to $100 to come home, take some nude pictures with him, and then he will pay them money. So when he will take this victim home, he will just end up tranquilizing them, and then when they were unconscious, we murder them after performing all sorts of sexual acts to them. We murder them, dismember their body, and then he went ahead to buy a 57-gallon. Now, after buying this 57-gallon drum, he moved it into his bedroom. He filled it with acid, and then he had a deep freezer in his house. So some of these victims, he will dismember them. One of the victims was says when he killed this guy, he said he especially loved this guy's build. So the skull, he boiled the skull in soy light, he boiled the head in soy light, removed the skull, preserved the skull, and then he went up to cut up